Welcome to the F.L.O.W podcast, fearlessly leading our way. This podcast is a space dedicated to spotlighting the unfiltered voices of Black women in their unique leadership journeys. I am your host, Angela B. Harris. I'm an award-winning coach, speaker, author, and champion for Black women. Make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast to stay connected to our conversations. Let's get ready to flow. Hey everyone, it's Angela, your host of the F.L.O.W podcast. I have some exciting news to share with you all today. We just hit a major milestone, 400 downloads. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who has tuned in, subscribed, and supported the F.L.O.W podcast. Your support means the world to me, and it's what keeps this podcast going. If you've been enjoying the episodes, I have a small favor to ask. Please share the podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us reach more people and continue to grow this amazing community. Thank you again for your incredible support. Let's keep the flow going and reach even greater milestones together. Hello, fearless leaders, and welcome back to the F.L.O.W podcast, where we explore the journeys of Black women leaders. I am your host, Angela B. Harris. Today's guest is Dr. Lisa Herbert. Dr. Herbert is a board-certified family physician, executive leadership coach, and DEI consultant who brings over 25 years of experience in providing primary care and serving as a healthcare leader. Through her coaching, consulting, workshops, and trainings, she helps physicians transition into effective leaders and provides support to organizations to enhance the patient experience, improve patient outcomes, and mitigate health disparities. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on your show and excited to talk with you today.
Great. Well, let's jump right in. I read that only 5.7% of U.S. doctors are Black. I'm curious, what what was your inspiration to become a doctor?
Yeah, so, for me, it was really a personal experience. So I grew up with my extended family. As a child, I lived with not only my parents, but also my grandparents. And my grandfather was a huge inspiration to me. I got to spend a lot of time with him. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was about 5 years old, and he died of a massive heart attack. I witnessed that, unfortunately. And from my recollection and from what my mom and my dad continued to kind of instill in me was that, that really touched me. And they recalled me saying at that time that I wanted to become a doctor because
Wow.
I didn't want anyone else to have to go through, what my grandfather did and to have people lose someone that they love. So that really was the pivotal point for me in deciding that I wanted to go into medicine. And I guess not really realizing the impact that not only he had on my life, but the impact that I could make to my community as well really inspired me to kind of move forward along that path of becoming a physician.
Wow, that's certainly an amazing impact at only 5 years old, that experience motivated and inspired you to turn that, I guess, pain into purpose, essentially.
Yeah, it really did. And, as I continue to sort of, move through my primary educational years, there was still that sense of community. Everyone really rallied around me and made sure that I stuck to my goals.
Oh,
I was the first in my family to go to college, so it wasn't really like I had support in terms of, the steps to know to kind of, get through high school and then attend college. But my family always knew the importance of education and knew that that was a way, obviously, for me to expand and to grow and to be able to give back and serve my community. So definitely it was a community that kind of rallied around me and helped me to move through those different stages.
yeah, that really resonates with me as well. I'm also a first generation college graduate, and I was fortunate to have like a positive village of women, surrounding me and supporting me as a child. I lost my mother to breast cancer at 3 years old, but I had a strong village of women that nurtured me and supported me along my journey.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Those women are and still are very instrumental as well in my life. So I can definitely
Yeah.
resonate with your story as well.
Well, some experts warn that the shortage of Black doctors can potentially harm public health. How important is it for someone to have culturally competent care?
It is hugely important. So not only just from again, my own personal experience, my grandfather unfortunately did not have access to healthcare. He did not have access to healthcare in terms of just having the care available to him in his community. He didn't have access to doctors who looked like him. There were a lot of things that he did not know about his condition, find out later that he had a heart illness and he also had diabetes. So all of these things were not sort of relayed to him in a way in which he would understand the importance, of being able to stay on top of his health, but having access to doctors in his community, an underserved community that might have been helpful as well. So it's really important for physicians who um, don't come from those underserved backgrounds to understand what it means to take care of, patients who may be from those areas. There are a lot of, diseases that are pertinent to our communities that a lot of times are overlooked. Some we present differently a lot of times, with certain diseases. So from prostate cancer to breast cancer to heart disease, those things show up differently and at different times in the life cycle of people. It's important for people to understand the environment in which they live and how that impacts their health. The socioeconomic status of the individual is important as well as their cultural beliefs, their habits, what are the things that are important to them in terms of family. And that extends from what they eat to, you know, where they can go to purchase foods to where they, can go to exercise or get access to those things that can help them to improve their health. So all of those things have to be taken into account when you care for patients and when you care for people of different backgrounds. And culturally competent care really looks at that whole person and looks at
Mhm.
all of the pieces that help to develop a person in terms of what their health journey looks like.
Yeah, I heard you talk about conditions such as prostate cancer, breast cancer, and heart disease, which are common in the Black community. What are some of the environmental impacts that are present within the Black community?
Yeah, so we can just start by looking at um the mental health, right, aspect. So for a lot of Black and brown people who have to deal with stress, who have to deal with a lot of trauma that may have happened, in their life previously and currently, the stress sometimes that they have to deal with on their jobs, in terms of toxic environments, so the mental health of a person, especially of Black and brown people, really impacts their health. So stress has been shown obviously to impact, someone's health in terms of heart disease. It can also limit, your ability to be able to have a longer life, so longevity is limited. So mental health definitely plays a huge part in terms of the overall health, of Black and Brown communities. And there's some other factors as well. So if you live in an area where you don't have access to healthy food, even, that can also impact your health as well. So there are certain communities where there are food deserts. They, have to travel miles sometimes to just go to a grocery store where they can get healthy foods and vegetables and fruits and things of those, which some people have a lot of access to, and we know helps to improve their overall health. So there are a lot of environmental factors that play into, those diseases that we sometimes see that are more prominent in the Black and Brown communities.
Could you share with us some insights into the obstacles Black physicians face when transitioning into leadership roles within healthcare organizations?
Yeah, so, one of the things that I think is important to understand is, first of all, that there are very small percentage of Black physicians that are in leadership roles. As you mentioned earlier, 5.7% of physicians are African American. Um, that number has not changed over probably the last 20 years. 2.8%, of those are Black women. And then when you look at those in the C-suite, only about 9% of CEOs are Black in the hospital C-suite. So very small percentage. I think that a lot of the reason why that happens is one, lack of mentorship if you don't really see anyone in that position, or if you don't have anyone to sort of guide you through that path in terms of what that will look like, it becomes difficult to even foresee that that's a possibility, right, of being in that role. So I think that that's definitely one of the things that probably impacts that number. Another thing that impacts the number, obviously, is, we still have to deal with inherent biases, and we still have to obviously deal with sometimes, discrimination in the workplace, but also in the promotional aspect as well. So those inherent biases obviously can lead to sometimes people applying to those positions and not being given a fair shot, of being in that role. A lot of times it may be, that particular physician doesn't really understand what the path is to getting to leadership. So that can also, impact their ability to move through to the C-suite. Um, so there are a lot of different reasons why, the number is small, but I think if you look at those three reasons, those are probably the top three that I would say.
Okay. Yeah, and mentorship is critical across any career.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and if the number continues to stay small, we have a very small pool of mentors to be able to help to, bring up that next generation.
I'm curious, did you have any sponsors in your career? Because I know for people that aspire to leadership levels, sponsorship is really critical to get to that next level. So what role does sponsorship play within your career?
Sponsorship is crucial as well. So, you need that person who's going to vouch for you in the room, that person who's going to throw your name in the hat, when that next role opens up. That person who's going to speak highly of you and highly of the things that you have accomplished in your career, or just sort of just be aware that if there is that next position that opens, that, they're going to be the one to, again, sponsor you, or to make sure that your name, again, is part of the pool of applicants who might be looking at that position. So
Mhm.
sponsorship is very crucial as well.
Well, I know sometimes life whispers to us and tells us it's time to make a change, but sometimes we ignore those whispers. When did you know it was time for you to make the pivot into your coaching practice?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I think for me, my journey might look a little different than some others. When I look at a lot of my colleagues nowadays who are physicians, they're starting to think about making career shifts a lot earlier than I did. And that could be for a number of reasons. I think burnout does play a part in that. For me, I was in practice for 20 years before I decided to pivot. And during those years, I did hold some leadership roles as well. So I got a taste of, what corporate medicine was like. And for me, burnout set in for me much later than a lot of my colleagues who are experiencing it now. So I would say probably about 15 or so years into practice, I started to experience burnout. That I had my own practice, I was raising two kids. Um, all of the responsibilities obviously that come along with being a wife, a parent, and a doctor running a full practice and not really taking time for myself, I started to experience burnout. So what that looked like for me was just, again, that mental and physical exhaustion that just didn't get better with rest or with vacation. Nothing seemed to kind of help. I felt like I had to kind of work harder, um, you know, to kind of get to kind of make it go away, which that didn't help, at all. My daughter actually was the one who mentioned it to me. So, like I was saying before, how it affects relationships. She started to feel like there was a difference in our relationship, that I wasn't spending enough time with her, that I was kind of short, I wasn't just focused, or just present. So I think for me, it was that thing. It was really her telling me that, like, Mom, you need to, something's going on. You need to figure this out. That I realized that it was burnout. So I started to think about what that next career move was for me. And I hired a coach myself who helped me to sort of figure it out. She gave me the confidence to know that I had options. I didn't have to stay in the same space that I was in, and that I had a lot of skills that I could use to do other things, even if it was going to be something outside of medicine. So my time spent with her really opened up my eyes to what coaching was about. And I realized that it was a professional development tool that was missing in medicine. And I felt like I had the skills, I had, the leadership background, and that I could bring that to my colleagues and help a lot of them. So that's how I sort of pivoted into coaching.
Mhm.
And glad I did. It was probably one of the best decisions that I made. I love what I do now. When I'm able to help physicians to either remain in their practice or remain, obviously practicing, that's a win. But if they're ready to also move into a leadership role, that's a win as well, if I can help them to get there.
Okay. I saw a recent report from Gallup that said 27% of Black women in the United States plan to start a business in the next 12 months. Outside of you working with a coach, how else did you prepare to transition into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I had a lot of mentors. So definitely,
Mhm.
I had women who did, the entrepreneurship thing before I did. When I ran my practice, I pretty much was, an entrepreneur at that
Right.
point myself as well. So, I took some business courses. I also any resources that were available to me, the Small Business Association, in my area where I lived at the time. They had different courses. They even would give you sometimes a business, mentor, they called it, to help you as well, building those skills. So I think it was a mixture of just having the coach, seeking out resources that were available, business related resources that were available. Also having a tribe of friends who were doing the entrepreneurship, journey as well, because you need people sometimes in your circle who are going to elevate you and to keep you going, because it can be lonely being a being an entrepreneur. Yeah, and then just developing a plan. I think for me, that was really helpful, right? So some people kind of just feel like they want to jump ship, if, for lack of a better word, and leave their job and go into entrepreneurship, which, I mean, if that's the path you want to take, hats off to you. But then there's also, just the planning of it. So what are the stages that you need to go through to kind of, shift from being a full-time employee to being an entrepreneur? and planning that out and what that will look like and how your income is going to be replaced and what support staff you're going to need and all those sorts of things.
And going back to what you said about having that tribe, I feel like some entrepreneurs, they may want to jump ship when the business isn't going as well as they anticipated. So it's really about staying the course, and having that tribe and having that mentorship is so important.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, because there are days sometimes you want to throw in the towel and that's normal.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
have, like you said, people around you who been there, done that, and can help say, okay, come on, tomorrow's a different day, it's going to get better.
right. So I'm curious, what have been some of the lessons learned since your transition into your coaching business?
Wow, some of the lessons learned. Always bet on yourself. That's one.
I like that.
Yes, always bet on yourself. That's been my mantra, and that's kind of helped me to continue moving forward. Um, the second thing I would say is just to always take time for yourself as well.
Hmm.
I think self-care is really, really important in general, but certainly as an entrepreneur, because you can get so engrossed in your day-to-day of your business and, just forecasting and all the sometimes, little things that we have to do that we forget to take care of ourselves. And, it's really important that we do that in order to stay the course.
Hmm. And I would say, as an entrepreneur, you really have to be intentional about that self-care in terms of building it into your schedule, because if you don't plan it, you'll just be so consumed with the business, you won't do it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's talk about your company, the Right Balance LLC. Tell us about the training you offer to help physicians transition into healthcare leadership.
Yeah, so Just the Right Balance is my company, which I formed in 2015. So that was my, transition, like I said, out of clinical medicine into doing the coaching work. So I am a certified executive coach and through the ICF. And what I do is I offer executive leadership coaching to physicians who are either looking to transition into leadership or physicians who might be in a leadership role and they're looking for that extra support to make sure that they're successful in those roles. So
Mhm.
physicians typically do not receive leadership training at all. Like during our medical school training or residency training, there isn't. It's more so now, but certainly there was not in the past a leadership curriculum. So, and that's really important when you're talking about running your own practice. Even as an employee, I think leadership skills are just really important. But certainly, if you're trying to move into the C-suite and getting into those leadership roles, those skills like communication, conflict resolution, strategic planning, a little bit of business acumen, all those things are really important to help you to become successful in leadership. And corporate medicine is a lot different than clinical medicine. So there's a whole mindset shift that has to happen as well. So I'm no longer seeing patients one to one, but now I'm working in a team. I'm working with people from different departments. I have to run a meeting now, or I have to be part of a meeting. So all of those skills and all of those things are what we kind of cover during the time that they spend with me, if I am their coach.
Mhm. And what are some of the common career paths that the physicians transition into in terms of leadership?
Yeah, so it really depends on the area that they decide to go into. So, a physician can transition, they can stay within clinical medicine, let's just say, and move into a medical director position where they are now overseeing, say, a clinic or they're running several clinics. So they're responsible for the practitioners in that clinic. They're also responsible for a lot of times the day-to-day operations of that clinic. So that's one leadership role that they can kind of move into. There's also a chief medical officer role, and a lot of healthcare organizations, especially hospitals, have this chief medical officer role. That's a bit above a medical director role where they're more dealing with strategy. They also have to deal with the medical staff. They have to deal with compliance and quality. and bylaws of the hospital. So that's another step up, but again, still sort of on the clinical side for those positions that want to stay within clinical medicine. Then there are also leadership roles. They can move into the healthcare industry and become
Mhm.
a medical director, senior medical director, vice president. They can work for pharmaceutical company again, and have, those leadership titles in that particular industry. And then there's academia, right? So a lot of physicians like to teach and they like research. So leadership roles there could be an assistant professor, or they can be chair of a department. So there are a number of leadership roles that are available for
Okay.
physicians.
For our listeners who may not have had the exposure to coaching, can you share a success story from some
Yeah.
of the organizations where you work?
Oh, yeah. So let's see. I've had a lot of success stories. I think probably the one that resonates most with me is I coached a physician who was a family physician, and they were wanting to move into a leadership role within their organization, but couldn't really figure out what it was that they wanted and sort
Mhm.
of what that would look like. So I like working with people who kind of just are trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So we worked together. We worked on their what their values were, what was important to them, where their strengths were. Um, and then we started to identify, which is really important, what were the gaps that they were seeing within their institution? Where could they make a difference? So even if that role wasn't available, or if that role wasn't yet being posted, what did they see as a gap, right, in their current facility? So we talked about it and realized that there was a gap in terms of the physician well-being component. This organization wanted to start to develop a program. They didn't have one. They were very intentional about wanting their physicians to have some sort of a well-being program. So we came up, the two of us, with what her title would be and what this program would look like. So over time, working together, she developed the confidence that she needed. She learned how to write a proposal. She learned how to pitch herself and pitch the job basically, and got the job. So that was a success story that I thought was very unique, but it also just kind of highlights the different components of what coaching can do.
Mhm.
That we can also help people to elevate to where they want to be and develop their own position, right? Develop
Mhm.
their own space within their industry.
Yeah, like you said, it's about crafting the vision and making sure that the vision aligns with your values. Because I feel like when we lose that fulfillment, it's because the work that we're doing is no longer aligned with our values.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know you also do work as a DEI coach and consultant. So, how do you help organizations create inclusive cultures and retain diverse talent?
Yeah, so that's sort of like a new role for me, but I felt like it was an important component to add to sort of what I already do. Because not only do I want to help develop physicians, I want organizations to understand and realize the importance of diversifying, right, their physician workforce or their healthcare workforce in general. So part of what I do is I'll come in sometimes and just coach the leaders of an organization around the importance of DE&I. So I don't come in and develop a DE&I program, but I help them to understand the importance of DE&I and where are the gaps within their organization that they can look at to help to improve their diverse workforce. So it's improving the diverse workforce. It's also being able to serve your communities. So where is the gap where you may not be serving the communities, and what do you need to help fulfill that? And then also just being that person who can serve as a consultant, right? So what are the questions that you have around DE&I for your organization? How does that impact not only the bottom line, but how does that impact healthcare outcomes? And why is that important?
Mhm.
So that's some of the work that I do in terms of DE&I consulting, is really just helping organizations understand the importance of a
Mhm.
diverse workforce and how to make that, impactful.
So, how do you convince leaders who may not see the benefit of creating those equitable systems within their organizations?
Yeah, so, I think I always tell people that DE&I is a journey, right? And
Mhm.
we're not going to turn it on tomorrow. We're not going to turn it on next week or next month, and maybe not even next year, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's a journey. So you have to be willing to ride the wave basically, and to ride the journey. So if you can understand foundationally why DE&I is important, but you can also understand that there are steps to it and that it is a journey, then I think that's where it becomes people can sort of grab that more, right? And they can sort of align themselves with it more than someone coming in and saying, we're going to do this month, and next month we're going to do this, and next
Right.
month we're going to do this, and next month we're going to do this, right? It's how are we going to get to the point where we do have, obviously some positive outcomes, but that's going to look like, us working together over the long haul, over this journey.
Yeah, you're right. Consistency is key. You can't stop, start because you won't get to the ultimate result that way.
And to also, coach them around the fact that you might backstep a little bit, and that's okay, right? But again, it's really just getting back on the bike again and just continuing to move forward.
Hmm. No, mentorship has been a common theme through our discussion, and as you also volunteer at Morehouse College, where you mentor and train medical students, who has been a significant mentor in your life?
Ooh, I had two mentors actually. So, my first mentor was a veterinarian, actually. So, a veterinarian who lived in my community. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and he was the only Black doctor, that I knew, and that was in my community at the time. I had a dog at the time, so I knew him as, being the vet that lived close to us. So I would go in, bring my dog, we would talk. He got to know my family. And when he found out that I was interested in medicine and wanting to go to medical school, he allowed me to spend some days with him. So I would go in and I would, kind of just stand by his side, watch him take care of animals,
Mhm.
and found out it was very, some of it's very similar. Some of the medications are similar,
Okay.
the diseases. So I really got to learn a little bit about medicine from a veterinarian perspective, but I still got a chance to kind of learn about that. He allowed me, as time moved on, to, assist in surgeries. So I was just fascinated. And so he was really my first mentor. He pushed me to, he said, I don't want you to become a vet. I want you to become whatever you want to become. And even if it's a people doctor, then that's fine, but I'm gonna support you. So he played a significant, role, I think, in certainly in me continuing on. And then the other mentor I had was once I actually got into medical school, there was a Black family doctor who again just allowed me to come in and work with him over the summer and then over several just times, during my training. And that helped so much, it helped just to prepare me, it helped give me confidence. He obviously just dropped a whole bunch of knowledge and pearls in my lap and continued again just to make sure that if I needed any support that he could provide that.
That's great. It sounds like at a young age, you essentially crafted your own internship at a young age.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, Dr. Lisa, before we wrap up, I have one final question for you. What do you do to recharge when you aren't fearlessly leading?
Ooh, what do I do to recharge? For me, it's being outside and being in nature. Even if it's just a walk around my development, just being outside, the fresh air, the trees, going to the park, anything outdoors for me just really helps me to recharge.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation today. How can our listeners stay connected with you?
Yeah, so they can stay connected with me on social media. So I'm on all social media at Dr. Lisa Herbert, Dr. Lisa Herbert. They can also visit my website, justtherightbalance.com, and find out, all about my company, the services that I offer, and also a little bit more about me as well.
Okay, and I'll make sure I include all that information in the show notes so our listeners can reference that.
Great.
Oh, well, that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care.
Thank you. It was great speaking with you.
Hey, listeners, it's your host, Angela V. Harris. I'm excited to share my new VIP Day experience. If you're ready to reconnect with your true self and gain clarity on your future, my exclusive VIP Day is designed to help you craft a clear vision of your future, release what's holding you back, and achieve more in your career and life. In this transformative experience, you'll embark on a journey of self discovery and personal growth with expert guidance from me as your coach. If you're ready to take the next step and learn more, I invite you to visit bit.ly/Angela VIP Day. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Thank you for listening to the Flow podcast. As we wrap up today's episode, always remember your unique path, your voice, and your leadership matter. If you loved what you heard, subscribe now to stay updated on our latest episodes. Take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with someone who can benefit from these conversations. You can stay connected with me on Instagram at the Flow Podcast with Angela, or visit me on the web at angelavharris.com. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and keep fearlessly leading in your own way.